One of the unfortunate side effects of all of the screaming conservatives' fake outrage surrounding Colin Kaepernick's noble decision to kneel is that the why, the purpose of the kneeling, is being drowned out in the noise. 6 days ago, on September 6, 2018, we were given a tragic reminder as to just how important Kaepernick's and our cause and the conversation that we're trying to initiate really is. Botham Shem, a 26-year-old black man who was beloved by his family, his church, and his community, was tragically killed while peacefully minding his own business in his own apartment. Killed by Amber Geiger of the Dallas Police Department, who was in full uniform, yet just off duty. Well, 3 days later, police successfully procured an arrest warrant for Geiger, charging her with manslaughter in the second degree. And what was notable about the description of the events in the arrest warrant is that it appears to conform directly to Geiger's own statements about the sequence of events as they led up to the shooting death. She claims, and it's reflected on the warrant, that she accidentally parked on the 4th floor of the garage instead of the 3rd floor where she lived. Also on the warrant is her claim that she was able to push open Botham's door with just the force of her electronic key, as it was, according to her, slightly ajar. The warrant also claims that the lights were off and she thought that she had encountered a burglar who refused to obey verbal commands before she fired her weapon, ultimately killing Botham Jean. What's remarkable is that these statements do not take into account any statements from any witnesses aside from the alleged killer herself. Well, look, we've come to learn that there are at least 2 independent witnesses to the incident who claimed that before the killing they heard Geiger pounding on Jean's door, repeatedly saying, "Let me in, let me in." One of the witnesses reported hearing a man's voice saying, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" If true, these would be inconsistent with Geiger's account, would suggest that she entered his apartment knowing that it wasn't hers, and would likely change the explanation for her mental state when she pulled the trigger, killing Botham Shem. In other words, a charge of murder would be more appropriate and more in line with what would be charged if a civilian had forced their way into the apartment of someone that wasn't theirs and gunned down the innocent and unsuspecting occupant in cold blood. At this point, we simply don't have enough information to parse out the truth. It may be that the witnesses, whose identity we don't know yet, may not actually be credible. But why weren't those accounts even referenced in the initial police reports? This seems likely to be another case of officers operating in such a way that diminishes the value of the lives they're sworn to protect, and ultimately grants to themselves a special status that the rest of us certainly don't enjoy. Do they mean to tell us that Officer Armstrong, who made the sworn statement in the warrant, had no opportunity to interview witnesses? That they did not take into account what neighbors reportedly heard, saw, and experienced that night? That there exists no room for doubt regarding Geiger's account, because none of that made it into the arrest warrant or the decision to charge Officer Geiger with only manslaughter. This is police privilege, friends. The blue wall of silence, as it's known, where police officers protect one another from the consequences of their actions. Officers protecting one another from the consequences of crimes is a significant source of American injustice, and it exacerbates the problem of police violence against civilian populations, especially those in the black community. Look, the failure of departments to police their own frustrates the ability of our society to identify officers who present a risk to public safety, and erodes mechanisms to hold those who commit grave injustices to account for their actions. This, simply stated, is not okay. Look, we can fully acknowledge that police officers have a dangerous job to do, which requires exceptional risk on their part. And those who execute their duties faithfully, with the public interest at heart, they are commendable, essential members of our society. But there are simply too many bad apples in the mix, and certainly too few good apples who are willing to hold the bad apples accountable for their crimes. And the tragic tale of Botham Jean, irrespective of the outcome, shows us exactly why.
A police officer shot and killed a man at her apartment building just south of downtown Dallas.
And if her story checks out, this may just be a tragic mistake. And if her story checks out, this may just be a tragic mistake. And if her story checks out, this may just be a tragic mistake.
Tim, Lauren, good morning. The Dallas Police Department just left the scene after spending about 7 hours out here investigating. They haven't been able to tell us a lot of information just yet, but what we do know is that an off-duty officer who lives at Southside Flats actually killed somebody that was inside of an apartment. Now, here's what we know exactly. The officer finished her work shift around 10 o'clock last night and was getting back home. That's when she entered what she believed was her own apartment, but that was not the case. It was somebody else's apartment. She ended up shooting that person inside. Responding officers found the victim, a 26-year-old man, badly wounded. He was taken to the hospital and died a short time later. Police would not say whether the female officer fired her weapon because she thought it was an intruder or whether it was for some other reason. People who live nearby say they got a notification about the shooting on the app called Nextdoor.
Condolences to the Botham, Shem,
Jean family. Jean family. Jean family.
We want to be, and we will be, as transparent in this investigation as we can be. And that is why we have called this news conference today.
I want to give you the details that we have and what we know so far.
And to clear up any inconsistencies that have already been reported. Last night, a female Dallas police officer returned to what she believed to be her apartment.
After her shift had ended.
She was still in uniform when she encountered Mr. Jean in the apartment. It's not clear what interaction was between them, her and the victim. But at some point, she fired her weapon, striking the victim. She called 911. Officers responded in about 4 minutes. Dallas Fire Rescue also responded and took Mr. Jean to the hospital, where he later died. At the very early stages of this investigation, initial indications were that we were dealing with an officer-involved shooting. However, as we continued the investigation, it became clear that we were dealing with what it appears to be much of a very unique situation. Therefore, we have ceased handling it under our normal officer-involved shooting protocol. A blood sample was drawn to test the officer's level for drugs or alcohol, and at my request, we are in the process of obtaining a warrant based on the circumstances that we have right now. We have also invited the Texas Rangers to conduct an independent investigation. They have just arrived a moment ago, and they are currently being briefed. I've spoken with the Jean family, his sister Elisa specifically. My condolences have been given to them, and we have reassured them that we are working diligently and that we have invited an outside agency to investigate this. Right now, there are more questions than we have answers. We understand the concerns of this community, and that is why we are working as vigorously and as meticulously as we can to ensure the integrity of this case and that the integrity of the department is upheld. In doing so, we hope to bring understanding and clarity to the family. We ask that you, this community, and the media work alongside of us in this process. I'll take any questions.
Chief, what is the warrant for that you're in the process of trying to get?
Based on what we know right now, that warrant is for manslaughter. At this point, I'm not certain what time her shift actually ended.
One more question.
Can you please provide whether or not the race of the officer and whether or not she was a patrol officer?
She was a patrol officer, and she is a Caucasian female.
Botham Jean was we're told, extremely involved in his church.
People who knew him say you could always find the man up on stage singing. Jean was a member of Dallas West Church of Christ
For the last 2 years, where he touched
lives. His innocence in all of this has struck a chord with his friends, his family, and many people in the community.
The Dallas police officer who shot and killed a man in his own apartment after police say she mistook his door for her own has been identified.
Amber Geiger is Amber Geiger.
It's been 48 hours since the shooting. Geiger has not been charged.
She's a 4-year veteran with
The Dallas Police Department it is assigned to the Southeast Patrol Division. This is a prior photo of her. Dallas Police Chief Renee Hall announced this morning that the Texas Rangers asked her to hold off on her plans for a manslaughter charge while Rangers investigate the shooting that left 26-year-old Botham Jean dead. Police say Officer Geiger had just finished her 12-hour shift Thursday night when she tried to enter an apartment unit at the Southside Flats, just blocks from police headquarters in the Cedars. She opened fire when she encountered Jean in his apartment. Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings says Jean Shooting's death is a very serious situation for the city of Dallas.
And believe me, for anyone that questions whether we're going to get to the truth of this, there should be no doubters. We will find out exactly what happened. Hey, the three of us don't know exactly what happened, but we do know we've got a system in place, a process in place that I think is going to get us through that.
This is a tragedy on both sides. So we want to get to the bottom.
Mayor Rawlings also described Jean as a young professional and a man of faith who was exactly the sort of citizen we want to have. His family says he was extremely involved in his church, the Dallas West Church of Christ. They held a vigil for him there today. Fox 4's Lynn Ann Wynn was there and has more.
Botham never saw color. He never saw race. Botham wanted all of us to unite, to be together.
Addressing the crowd just 2 days after her son's untimely death, Allison John shared several fond memories, even making the crowd laugh at times, telling stories of her son's determination to go away from his home of St. Lucia to attend school at Harding University in Arkansas.
Botham went to Harding and he ran for the school president. And I said to him, my little black boy, how are you going into, excuse me, but a white man town and run? He said, Mom, I have to do what I have to do.
Items seized from Botham Jean's apartment, including a small amount of marijuana. Fox 4 Sean Rabb in now in the newsroom with the itemized list that's in those court documents. Sean?
And Steve, there have been, as you said, several warrants signed by judges executed in this case. Aside from the arrest warrant for Amber Geiger and the search warrant signed September 7th, returned to the court today, the others are sealed and not accessible. We showed the inventory documents to the family's attorneys right after the funeral. The return does not indicate where the items were located or who they belong to. The inventory return shows 2 fired cartridge casings, 1 laptop computer, 1 black backpack with police equipment and paperwork, 1 insulated lunchbox, 1 black ballistic vest with police markings, 10.4 grams of marijuana in Ziploc bags, 1 metal marijuana grinder, 2 RFID keys or electronic keys, and 2 used packages of medical aids. The recovered items were exactly the same items lined out in the search warrant.
This is nothing but a disgusting attempt to assassinate the character of a wonderful young man. It's the same old playbook, assassinate the character after they assassinate his person. Correct. As Attorney Merritt and Attorney Washington said, he didn't kill anybody. He was killed.
Botham Jean's autopsy will tell more. Attorneys not involved in the case tell me they believe that specific language about contraband and narcotics was included in the search warrant because it is something that may have been in plain sight when officers were in John's apartment after he was killed by the officer. The search warrant for the crime scene that was Botham Jean's apartment signed in the early morning hours Friday, September 7th. By law, the warrant has to be executed in 72 hours, just being returned to the court today. Steve?
Okay, Sean Rabb, thank you.
All right.
Fox 4 has just obtained video of Officer Amber Geiger being booked into the Kaufman County Jail last Sunday evening on the manslaughter charge. Geiger was shackled at the waist and she was brought in for processing, appeared emotional, at one point wiping her eyes. It's not unheard of for a police officer accused of a crime to surrender in another county. In this case, it was the Texas Rangers' decision to allow Geiger to surrender in Kaufman County. Her bond set at $300,000 was paid and she was released.
What we learned in Trayvon Martin is that it's very, there's this rush to sort of characterize who the victim is and try to see if that has some bearing on what happened in the situation, and often that can be unfair. If in the heat of the moment, you know, obviously this officer may not know who this person is or what their background was or anything like that, but there is a rush to get these details and put them out in the public space because the public is hungry for details about what may have happened, the background of the officer and the background of the person who was killed. Yeah. And I do think as media outlets we have to be more sensitive about what kind of details will come out and how they may affect how we see both the victim and the person who killed them.
Yeah, indeed. Let me play Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings responding on Thursday to the release of information about Mr. Jean.
There are many in social media and new outlets that want to spread false innuendos. Bo was a great man, and I am disturbed today at those that try to besmirch his reputation. Shame on you. Stop it.
Dallas police are investigating a murder mystery linked to a high-profile case. A key witness in the trial of former police officer Amber Geiger was shot and killed Friday night. Here's Meg Oliver.
Be advised, it does look like we have one on the ground.
Dallas police say 27-year-old Joshua Brown suffered multiple gunshot wounds and was found lying on the ground in the parking lot of his apartment Friday night. Brown used to live in the same apartment complex as former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger and her victim. He was just across the hall from Botham Jean that night in September 2018 when Geiger said she mistakenly walked into Jean's apartment and shot him with her service weapon.
Yeah, we need a moment.
Just last week, Brown told a jury he heard the interaction between Geiger and Jean, followed by gunshots.
Could you tell if one of the voices was giving loud commands like stop, police, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, but no, that wasn't what they were saying.
Yeah, but no, that wasn't what they were saying. Yeah, but no, that wasn't what they were saying.
have my gun pointed, and I'm saying, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands."
I have my gun pointed, and I'm saying, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." I have my gun pointed, and I'm saying, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands."
Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Dallas police are still searching for a suspect and a motive. Several witnesses say they saw a silver four-door sedan speed away from the apartment complex. The Dallas County prosecutor called Brown's testimony brave and said that he came forward to testify when others
The Dallas County prosecutor called Brown's testimony brave and said that he came forward to testify when others wouldn't. The Dallas County prosecutor called Brown's testimony brave and said that he came forward to testify when others wouldn't.
Police Department is working diligently on your behalf to solve this case. It's our policy that we pursue all murder suspects. We pursue them aggressively, we pursue them thoroughly with the hope of bringing closure to the family. As you know, I've said it before, that we value human life. We understand that there's some in the community that do not, but the Dallas Police Department does value human life. Through the dedicated work of my detectives, we have identified 3 suspects in the Joshua Brown murder. Jacarius Mitchell, black male, 20 years of age. Michael Mitchell, black male, 32 years of age. Thaddeus Green, black male, 22 years of age. According to suspect Jacarius Mitchell, all 3 suspects came from Alexandria, Louisiana, to purchase drugs from Joshua Brown. Thaddeus Green was the facilitator. He's the one that contacted Joshua Brown. As they drove to the offense location, Thaddeus Green gets out of the vehicle, has a conversation with Joshua Brown, which escalates into physical altercations, at which time Jacarius Mitchell gets out of the vehicle and he states that Joshua Brown orders him back into the vehicle and shoots him in the chest. As he's laying in the vehicle, he hears 2 more gunshots. He says that Thaddeus Green shot Joshua Brown 2 times. According to the autopsy report, Joshua Brown was shot 2 times in his lower body. One was a through and through, and the other entered his body just below the spine, traveled upward, damaging vital organs. Thaddeus Green also took the backpack that Joshua Brown had, as well as the gun that Joshua Brown had. Michael Mitchell was the driver. He dropped Thaddeus Green off at an unknown location, and he took Jacarius Mitchell to Promise Hospital to receive treatment. He was later transported to Parkland Hospital, where he is currently in police custody. We will execute a warrant for capital murder on him today. We also received numerous tips as it related to the killing of Mr. Brown, and in that we executed a search warrant at Mr. Brown's apartment, where we confiscated 12 pounds of marijuana, 143 grams of THC cartridges, and $4,000 in cash. We have also issued capital murder warrants for the other 2 suspects, Michael Mitchell and Thaddeus Green. I want to assure the citizens of Dallas that we will continue to be transparent and we will provide updates as they materialize concerning this case.
Had to get my weight up and go to the crib.
Got you weak over there, huh? I'm gonna get my lighter. Watch my right quick. I'll be right back.
You're gonna need this now. How much?
What you need?
Like 3, 5, or 50?
I got you. No problem. The perks are rolling loud. $50, 3 5s. Yeah, I got you. Sure. Okay. I'm pretty sure I do. I'm over here on South Beach right now. Pull up, man. Pull up with me.
You know, and I think he probably was set up. They have surveillance footage, okay? I mean, when somebody gets shot and they go to the hospital, you don't think they're going to ask questions? Yeah, they're going to ask questions. Yeah, there's going to be video. So they had the video. They pulled up video of this suspect being dropped off. The suspect father admits it. There's other multiple suspects. They rented a car. And a lot of people were saying, too, that it's crazy. Why would somebody drive from another state to get drugs? I've heard of that so many times. That's new to you guys? That's new to some people? You never heard some? I've heard of people driving from New York to Florida or vice versa when you're buying in bulk to get a better deal. Sometimes people don't have those connects. Now, we're about to get into the video that I posted earlier, and I'm going to show you why that matters, because some people just saw him smoking and they're like, ah! But some people didn't pay attention to the details. Now, I got a backpack, the money counter, everything makes sense. The backpack that they took that had a gun, Josh's gun, the weed, Josh's weed, and whatever else was in that backpack. He's seen in this video hours before he's shot. So let me tell you this. Do you guys, the people that are, was Josh paid off? Were all these witnesses paid off? Were these 3 guys paid off? The guy that got shot, was he paid off? Right? The father, the suspect's own father admits that they went to go buy drugs, which I believe he was set up, Josh, but he believes that. He says that. So what, was the father paid off too? How many people were paid off on this? That's what I'd like to know. All right, so let's talk about the video I posted earlier, okay? This wasn't to trash him, to make it look bad. I think it's pertinent. He was killed hours after, maybe 2-3 hours after this video. The people that killed him are probably watching this. That's how bad it is. Now, at the beginning of the video, people noticed the scale, okay? There is a scale. So I saw a scale. I didn't think it was that big of a deal at all, you know, but yeah, that's the scale. First thing people noticed. Next thing people noticed that they pointed out was, and I'll bring you over here, was the money counter in the back. Some people call that a toaster. That doesn't look like a toaster to me, okay? Another thing people pointed out was the shoebox on top. The shoebox to me could be anything. Doesn't mean that it has to be anything, okay? That's whatever. That's circumstantial, okay? But to me, the money counter is an indicator, but you can pass that off too, right? Oh, yeah, many people have money. He had Airbnbs. Okay, we can pass that off. Here's something else deeper in the video. And salute to the person that told me about this and contacted me, because I wouldn't have noticed this. What do you see here? Right there in the back, okay? That's a backpack. What did you see in the warrant that these people took after they shot and killed Joshua? A backpack that contained a gun, that contained the marijuana. So is this all, did the cops pay Joshua off beforehand or something? Did the cops know this? Or were the cops maybe watching the live stream? Here's the backpack. This is the backpack. This was 2-3 hours before they killed him. He's on live stream. That's why that video is important. It's not about that he's smoking. Who cares? It's not about that. Let's talk about it some more. Let's talk about official documentation. I'm talking about official records that the public can't see this. Let's talk about it. Well, now you see it. A search of the closet, a plastic tube containing 8 large sealed bags, a THC cartridge inside a suitcase, a search of the kitchen, which he was live streaming in, 1 large bag on the kitchen counter. Was that bag that we saw on the stream? I don't know. 4 large bags by the kitchen stove, 2 large bags in the bottom drawer, the digital scale that we saw on live stream, U.S. currency in the top in the top left kitchen drawer, U.S. currency on top the kitchen bar. Was that the shoebox? Was that the bag? I don't know. One baggie of Pac-Man packaging. No idea what that is. 3 jars on the kitchen counter next to the stove. 9 THC cartridges on the top right kitchen cabinet, which we couldn't see. I guess that was out of view. The weight, 149 grams, the weight of THC cartridges. The weight of the Mary J was 6,000 grams, whatever that comes out to. The weight of the packaging alone was 565 grams. The Mary J was 5,507 grams. Was this all planned? Was it planned? Were all these people paid off? All the witnesses? Was Joshua paid off too for his own murder? But this is a theory. I was told, and it looks like these people here, they're linked to that 2018 shooting where his friend got killed, Joshua Brown's friend, and Joshua got shot in the foot. The guy, Cornelius, which is believed to be friends, have relations or whatever with these people, well, he deleted his Facebook this morning. Poof, gone. He's believed to be involved with that 2018 shooting. Where'd you go, Cornelius? And Joshua, unfortunately, posted his dealings online under his government name, making sales and prices and everything online. When Facebook is literally recording everything you do, they have trigger words, they have the algorithm. You talk, you say certain phrases, oh, they record and they document you.